Best laid plans in a trash compactor. Nuisance factor, nuisance factor. Can't get herpes from a tractor. Nuisance factor, nuisance factor. In the way of what you're after. Nuisance factor, nuisance factor, yeah. Oh, yeah.
Well, hello, Adam Rowe.
Well, hello, Boris Gustavov.
How's it going, man?
It's Friday as always, so it's going fairly well. And today happens to be the ominous Friday the 13th.
Dun, dun, dun. Yeah. So, very appropriately, we have this young man on the show today.
Yes, we have invited our friend, entrepreneur, manufacturer, and suspected CIA operative, Clayton Smith, on the show.
Hey, Clayton.
Greetings. And I was born on the 13th, so it's really bad.
Wow.
Oh, wow. Yeah. That makes a lot. Wow, that's amazing. So, all kinds of coincidences
Well, it was
going
Sunday.
on already.
Friday the 13th was on a Sunday when I was born.
I haven't even started.
Wow, that's interesting. One of my children was actually born on Friday the 13th, 2002, December.
That's amazing.
Well,
For all my lack of belief in God, I'm still incredibly superstitious.
There's 13 states, original states, so some of the coins and everything.
That's
Can't
true.
be too bad.
Maybe it should be a positive omen, like insofar
what I'm
as our
thinking. Well,
culture is.
It's
feel
it's
that
a
way.
reference to the 12 signs of the zodiac and the sun. 12 plus 1, 13.
What he said.
But why unlucky then?
It's not necessarily unlucky, man. Some people think it's lucky. Did you know people get tattoos on Friday the 13th?
No, I did not know that.
Yeah, so in the tattoo world, I didn't know this until I became part of the tattoo industry, and this is utterly off topic. You can edit it out later if you'd like. But yeah, people on Friday the 13th, it's a big thing. People go and get tattoos.
Really?
Yes, it's
know,
one of the
most-
busier days
So
of the
they'll
year.
skip the 13th floor
Right.
because people get the heebie-jeebies.
Right.
Most people
But-
with tattoos ride my bicycle.
There you go.
Okay, all right.
We'll probably leave that in.
Okay.
Sure. Okay, so yeah, we wanted to talk a little bit about American manufacturing, and who better to talk about American manufacturing with than an American manufacturer? And that is what you are, isn't that true, sir?
I'm kind of a rare breed, but yes, that's exactly what we've been doing for the last many, many years. 50 years, in fact, and 2 more years.
That's amazing. So could you start by just giving us a little bit of your background, telling us a little bit about your own personal history, and then also, of course, where you've come into contact with manufacturing, and specifically American manufacturing?
Yeah, I mean, as a kid, I had no idea I'd go into manufacturing. My father was in the wholesale business. He was a jobber, wholesaler. And later, but he was in the bicycle business, and later became a distributor for Swin bicycles, which we did for 20 years. So I learned the wholesale business backwards and forwards, but I never thought I'd actually be making bikes. And then after Swin vertically integrated their operation and fired all their distributors, we still needed industrial bikes. And my cousin, Tolman Quarterman, was in the bicycle business. He told me that the manufacturers of roll-fast bicycles, H.P. Snyder in Little Falls, New York, were going out of business. They're having an auction. And I went. It was an enormous warehouse, 1 million square feet. There had been a woolen mill in Little Falls, New York.
What year is this?
Back in 1976 is when we started.
Wow.
So I filled after I was there a couple of months, but we filled up a semi, machinery and frames and everything else. And the bike I make today is actually using the same tooling that Rollfast used to make their bikes, except we weld the frame instead of brazing the frame. And so that's how I got into making industrial bikes. An interesting story, though, is that, and it's not about me first. I was drafted in the military. I never went to Vietnam because I was lucky. Ended up being in Munich, Germany for 2 years. I went to Jacksonville University, graduated from there. But again, I never thought I'd be in the manufacturing business. So moving forward from the time I graduated and was in the military to 1976. So I find myself up in New York, got to bring all this stuff down, and we had to learn from scratch how to make everything and how to make our own tooling. So it's been quite a journey. I tell people I'm a tool and die maker and an engineer, but I'm autodidactic. So, of course, that means I'm self-taught. The hard way to do it, because becoming a toolmaker costs a lot of money.
Yeah.
And it was very tough at the beginning. We were lucky enough to get a loan from a local bank based on our collateral, and that's how we got started.
So I couldn't help but notice the handsome hat you have on.
Oh, my hat, yes. This is a cabbie from the Civil War. I'm wearing this because manufacturing is going to be relegated to this type of situation where this gentleman is Dirty Billy. He makes hats for reenactors one at a time. They're kind of expensive. They're totally unique. But if you have something that's made with quality you can't get anywhere else, you don't mind paying the price for it. This is the best. And I've worn it today basically to explain that manufacturing has to do that sort of thing to succeed. We can no longer sell items, shabby products made on price. We can't compete with the rest of the world. It's not all about China. It can be Vietnam. It can be Indonesia. We've got to compete based on quality and longevity of the product. That's what we're all about. And you can see this with a lot of other things. You know, it's something as simple as Coca-Cola. If you want Coca-Cola, there is no substitute. If you want a Rolex watch, there is no substitute. So why do these things exist and succeed, especially in a case of a watch, when it costs as much money as it does, but at the same time, you can get the same time from your iPad made in China. So why do you need a Rolex watch? People still appreciate the complications in a Rolex watch. They're willing to pay for it. There's got the joy of ownership. And that's what America has to move back to. And there's certain ways to get to that point, different from the ways that were done in the past. And we can talk about that too, but I don't want to wear everybody out here.
Well, let me ask you this: you said we've got to get back to that. When do you think we lost that, and where are we going back to?
Well, I could talk specifically about the bicycle industry, but overall, if you go to the times when people were competing only in the United States and only on price. I remember, because I'm a little bit older than you guys, but I remember a time when they had gas wars, and you would go into a gasoline station and you'd get your windows washed. The guy would pump your gas, and they'd give you some glass cups or glasses as an incentive. I mean, all kinds of crazy stuff to get your business to sell gasoline. And so whoever had the lowest price got the business.
Interesting, because Standard Oil owned all the gas stations at the time. They were competing with themselves.
Well, back in the day, there was Pure, and there were some other ones that didn't own.
I'm joking, but they did dominate. They owned most of them, for sure.
Wow. Texaco, Sinclair, but there's a whole bunch of them out there, but they're all gone except now Exxon does own everything. It was Standard Oil of New Jersey, and they broke it up. And
I believe it became Exxon and Texaco and several others.
And you know why it's called Exxon?
Because they all take ecstasy and they're on X.
That would be a great reason, but the reason is they paid somebody hundreds of thousands of dollars to discover that there was no language in the world that had that name. That's true.
Wow.
And that's why they came up with Exxon. It had an
to be
expert.
Completely unique.
Yeah.
To have a brand new word.
They may have found one later that they didn't know about, but I'm not sure. But that's why it was.
All right. So getting ready for this episode, I perused the Wikipedia article on the history of American manufacturing, and I was surprised to learn that, well, first of all, the success of American manufacturing is credited to sort of the mass proliferation of the assembly line and that sort of and vertical integration, something you mentioned. But apparently this kind of assembly process originated in China when they were making like crossbows for like pre-imperial China, I guess. But Americans really took advantage of that and were able to do so on a mass scale. So earlier, just a few moments ago, you were talking about your hat, and you said, well, this is like a one-of-a-kind piece. and this is what we need to get back to. But it seems to me that, historically, the success of American manufacturing was tied not so much to making like unique pieces and having specialized expert labor, but rather having unskilled labor trained in very specific tasks and performing on an assembly line. So what am I like sort of missing in that?
Well, just to reiterate, just the opposite. This is what you don't want to do. I mean, you probably want to do it if you're after a Fabergé egg, but you don't want to do it. That's why I've got the hat, which I can take off and put on my other hat.
Sweet.
Okay.
Working hat. So this is no. You want to you do want to go back to manufacturing. You do want to go back to volume. Economies of scale make the products that you drive and on a highway inexpensive. If you get by a Lamborghini, it costs millions of dollars, and Ford costs $25,000 or $30,000. So you want to try to get back to that. You just can't do it the way you want to for every product. So there's something in between, and that's what we do. That's what we're trying to achieve, and that's what Americans going to have to do. They can no longer sell on price. Very few things you can sell on price anymore, but there's that in-between market that I can talk about.
And the in-between market, as I'm hearing, is a good price for a quality item. So it's reasonably priced for the quality you're getting. It's not going to be the cheapest one, but also it's not the shittiest one.
It's got to be targeted. In other words, not everybody drives a Porsche, but they can't make enough of them. Not everybody has a Rolex, but they can't make enough of them. Years ago, Mercedes cost a lot more money than it does now. You had to wait 6 months for a Mercedes, which was something that they baked into the price, knowing, or I should say their production, they kept their production low in order to bring the price up. But that's not conducive to the consumer, because in honesty, a Buick is just as good as a Mercedes as far as the machines they use to make it and so on and so forth. No, what I'm talking about is for us to learn how to target a specific group of people, a specific need. And if I can diverge for a second about talking about my bike, we were the first people anywhere to make a cruiser bicycle. There's an interesting story behind that. I had two guys working for me. They were bachelors. They lived out at the beach, and I had worked them to the bone. And they said, "Look, you're working us so hard. You're a slave driver. You gotta give us a bike." He said, "You want me to give you a bike?" I said, "Okay, well, we'll give you a bike. Make it up any way you like." And Gordy Pesanovsky and J.J. Green took our frames, painted a green one, painted a blue one, took the wheels, painted everything black, put on a fat seat, put on fat tires, took the fenders off, put on handlebars, wide handlebars, and they said, "Wow, that looks terrific." And they went out to the beach. About 3 weeks later, I said, "Guys, I'm going to come out to the beach. I want to see your new apartment, and hear you were having a wonderful time, and take a look at those bikes." And I said, "Yeah, well, you don't really have to come out, boss. Yeah, we're having a good time." But I said, "No, I'd like to come out there. I really want to come out there and see those bikes." "Well, we sold them." "What? Oh, yeah. Katzenjammer. I can't believe it." So I blew my top, and I said, "Wait a minute, how much you get paid for them?" And that's when we started making cruiser bicycles.
Yeah, right.
And it's basically a cantilever frame, which Swin made, for example, and other people. Swin, I think, made it popular. But a cantilever frame is a curved frame instead of a straight frame. That way, a small guy can ride the bike, even a kid, and a grown man, by putting a seat up, can ride the same bicycle.
Right.
So that's how we started with the cruiser bicycle. That's what we're stuck with. We claim that. That's the one thing we are expert at. And so how are you going to make that bike today and compete with something like a bike that comes from China or from other places? Well, look at where the bike is used. It's used on the beach. And so often people have a nice home and invite their friends over, and the bikes look like garbage because an aluminum frame will corrode. The seats on their bicycles have a plastic bottom; they fall apart. The chains and the sprockets rust, and so in a year or two, if they last that long, the bikes look like garbage. So there's no durability. Why should there be? They say it's just a toy. Well, after somebody buys like 4 or 5 of these bikes and they don't and they fall apart, if he goes into a retail store and says, "I want a better bicycle. I want something I want the best. I want something that's going to last me here in this environment." Maybe he has a yacht. Maybe he has a boat. Maybe he leaves his bikes outside. So the dealer can't really point to anything that's made well that'll really do that job. Nothing in the market at all will do that job. There's no durability because they don't care. But we do. So we made a bike that would last and last. I'm saying our bicycle, Swin would last for 50 years. Our bike will last for a couple of 100 years. Now, I can't prove that because I'm not 200 years old, but I think it'll last at least that long.
All right.
Well,
So but the question, though, is how do you make a bicycle like that?
right. Well, yeah. So let me ask you this. So this is the bike. This is
Yes.
correct. And
Yes.
what is it? What is the name of the bike? What is it called?
Well, it's an Emory C4. C4 is named after my son, Clayton Smith, who had adrenal myeloneuropathy, passed away at 26, but helped us to develop this bike.
So it's not named after the explosive.
No.
So this bike has gotten some accolades. In fact, it's my understanding that some folks have referred to this as the best bicycle ever made. Is that true?
Yeah, and if you want to question me on that, I'm prepared.
Well, it just so happens that that's in my notes today, which were prepared by a secretary of mine. So yeah, give me the backstory on the best bicycle ever made.
Well, if you take a bicycle, you make the frame out of stainless steel. You use tapered roller bearings instead of ball bearings on the hub, the bottom bracket shell, and the head tube. You use the same type of bearings that Ducati motorcycle uses on their motorcycles. You use an independent seal like you find on your car, so that you can't, on your automobile, you could drive through a puddle or through rain and so on, and the dirt and the rain doesn't get in, the grease doesn't get out. How far does your car go before you need to replace those bearings? Maybe 100,000 miles or more. You use that technology on a bike. You've over-engineered it, and this is why no one else will go to that trouble, because they say to themselves, it's just a bike. Well, for us, it's not just a bicycle. A bicycle means a lot more to this family. But more than that, it's the most efficient machine ever made. I was mentioning the other day to somebody that you could eat a hamburger and ride your bicycle to Atlanta. It is the most efficient machine on earth, period. They keep trying to make it more efficient. Our bike is lighter than the standard cruiser bicycle, because it uses stainless steel that has 150,000 pounds tensile strength instead of like steel for 55,000. We're keeping the tubing at 1 inch because that's the standard, and that is it gives it that cruiser look. We make everything on the bicycle. Now there's the trick.
Right.
If you can take everything on the bike that you would normally buy from overseas, like everybody else has to do, we make the frame, the fork, the handlebar, the stem, the wheels, the hub. We make all of the fittings for the steerer column. We make our own stem and handlebar, as I mentioned, and also the seat. We make our own seat, literally from scratch. The rims, for example, we don't make the rims, but they're made in the United States. I could buy cheaper rims. That's the best rim. The bottom bracket shell is cast stainless steel. The head tube is cast stainless steel. It has a nameplate which is embedded into the head tube. No one else has that. So we're trying. By the way, our stem is totally unique. You use a U-bolt system, which is the same system that keeps your axle on your car. It's absolutely dynamite, perfect. You can't hurt it. All made to keep the bicycle lasting, to keep it durable, so that in the long run, it's the cheapest bicycle you could possibly buy. So a lot of people don't realize that buying quality is cheaper in the long run, and it really is. I mean, anybody buys this bike, it's not unthinkable that their great grandkids will be riding the same bicycle.
So talk to me about the stainless steel. I think it's a great look. It reminds me of one of my favorite vehicles, the DeLorean, of course, which...
I thought you were going to say the one about Elon Musk.
No. I mean, that's just a ripoff of the DeLorean. The DeLorean was cool, man. Yeah. I don't care what you say, but what is the advantage of using the stainless steel in the bike? Why is it stainless steel? And do you have colors, or are they all stainless steel? How does that work?
Well, that's a great question. The stainless steel is going to always look that way unless we go through a special process. I have one called the COVID. Mm-hmm. Wait a minute. No,
the COVID?
Did I say
Are you
COVID?
sure about that? I think you need to call your marketing guy.
We've decided to change that.
Right.
But no, it's a Corvid, which is like a crow. Right. Before COVID came out, so we probably might change it to Corvid. It's something else. But anyway, you can get a black frame.
Okay.
It would almost double the cost of the price of the bike. So we probably will offer that. So you could get a black stainless steel, but that's it. Okay. As far as the colors go.
But that wouldn't be painted. That would be some kind of chemical process.
Well, of course you could paint the stainless steel if you wanted. We'd do that for you if you wanted. But the other thing is all the other parts, such as the crank arms. And the other parts that are anodized aluminum, we will have colors like red, blue, gold. So that will also, and the rims will be that same color. So it will make it look a lot different, individualized. So you want a bespoke bicycle, so we can offer that. We can give you an English seat, a Brooks saddle, leather saddle. We can change the handlebars. So there are things we can do to make this bike unique to the individual.
So you can customize them a little bit.
Absolutely. Yeah.
But this is it. This is the bike that we're talking about right here.
Yes, except that this has a 7-speed rear end. I don't have it hooked up for 7, but you can get a single speed coaster brake, 7-speed coaster brake, or 3-speed. Now the interesting thing is it's got a coaster brake, so you don't need any other brakes, and that means everything is self-contained. You cannot ride this under the water because of that rear hub, but otherwise you could. Somebody that owns a yacht, for example, could, or even a small dinghy, and they have to take their bike on their dinghy, they can just rinse it off, get on the next morning, ride it, and rinse it off again, and it'll last and last, because there's no way of anything getting into the bearings.
Do people ride bikes underwater?
Sir?
Do people ride bikes underwater? Is that a thing?
Well, probably once.
Okay. That's pretty cool.
The chain looks off the chain.
Yes.
What's up with that?
In fact, it's not a chain at all.
Well, if one of the American manufacturers is Gates. Gates makes belts that power the transmission for Harley Davidson motorcycles and others. And they make this belt here, which is also carbon fiber. It'll last 7 times longer than a chain, and there's no oil, so there's no mess when you ride the bike, like you would have with a chain and sprocket and so on and so forth. And the rear part has this unit right here, if you can see it. That part is allows the frame to be taken apart so you can replace the belt.
Okay.
Since there's no master link on the chain.
So now you had stated that this is the first or the original beach cruiser, or just cruiser? It's just cruiser bike, right?
No, we made the first beach cruiser, and it's a beach cruiser.
And so your innovation then has been copied, I think, broadly by a lot of bike companies, hasn't it?
Duh.
Yeah, well, that's
everybody has, and of course they came from. Well, after World War II, you got bikes in from China, but very few. Some from India, very few. Most of the bikes then came from Europe.
Okay.
And then later they came from Taiwan, and now they come from China.
Okay. So as far as the bicycle market, I mean, who are your competitors? I mean, who are you competing with, and who is the ideal customer for the Emory?
Well, there is no competition. If you go into a bike shop and say, I'd like to have a stainless steel bike, because I'm tired of replacing my bikes, they don't have one. Not a cruiser anyhow. So that's the competition. The customer is anybody who lives on the East Coast, West Coast, and Gulf Coast. It's a coastal product. Anywhere it's flat, of course, you can ride it. Holland, any place that's flat. We don't want you bent over like a pretzel. You're not in a Giro d'Italia or any type of race. You don't need to have that ability to pull up on the handlebars and increase your body weight. And but the seat is comfortable. It's the same seat. Millions of those seats were the exact seats you would find on the original bicycles made by Swin.
Mm-hmm.
So we bought that ability to make those seats, and also original what do you call those, banana seats. So we have that ability to make that type of seat. So it's truly an American original, made for American rear ends.
There you go.
I see it's nice and wide.
Yeah, right. It's very wide.
I also noticed this really kind of cool. What do you call this?
That would be our logo or nameplate if there was a plate there.
Yeah. Is there a story behind that?
Well, there is. If we had a close-up of that, it would be there's a horse on there. I went to Sweden after I was when I was 19 years old. I worked at a factory in Germany as a praktikant. And one of the people there...
Do we want to know what that is?
Ja, sicher, ich kann das erklären, wenn du willst.
Praktikant? I think I've met some of those.
Praktikant. I said like an apprentice. They had an apprenticeship program at this factory.
Okay.
In Nordrhein-Westfalen, and
That is a great word, though.
Jan-Erik Lilleberg was there. His father made, his family rather, made mopeds and bicycles, and under the brand Mustang. When Ford went there with their Mustang cars, they had to pay his family to use the name Mustang. Ha ha. So I asked Jan-Erik, I said, I'm getting ready to make a bike. After 1976, after I wasn't 19 anymore, but 1976 we went back. I went back over to Sweden and learned how he made bikes. I had a fellow there from Denmark taught me how to weld by holding hands with me because we couldn't talk. It was very intimate, and I learned very well how to make bikes, how to weld. We learned to shot peen the frame. Our original bikes were the only ones in the United States that were shot peen for stress relief. You'll have to look that up because I don't want to talk about it for 5 minutes. But at any rate, made the bikes much stronger, 300% stronger. And so after learning how to do that in Sweden, I asked Jan-Erik if I could use his horse on my logo, and then I designed the Emory name, and I used the diamond from my father and uncle's business, which was Clayton Willard Sales, when we were in the wholesale business. Am I talking too fast?
No, not at all.
I can slow down.
No, you can slow down or go fast, either way.
Right.
Next question is...
I like that, freedom.
Why...
They're all about freedom.
Why would the CIA want to have an asset that is a bicycle manufacturer? If you can talk about that.
I was in military intelligence in the Army.
Yeah. Welcome to the Nuisance Factor.
I will not confirm nor deny that.
Neither confirm nor deny.
Ridiculous question.
We know you're in the CIA. I can tell. It's the two hats. That always gives it away. CIA guy always has two hats.
Exactly.
That's funny.
Well, anyhow, we have our whole family working on this. I've got several sons. My son Seabrook is in his 30s. And... hey, I need to quench my thirst here.
All right.
Talking me on.
Do you have any partners?
Other than CIA?
Well,
other than the deep state, sir.
We are working with one individual who wants us to make an electric three-wheeler.
Oh, wow.
And even an electric bike now is possible for us. And we would probably use the Bosch system, which is the motor is part of the transmission, so you pedal and the motor helps you to pedal. A lot of places, what's that place in Michigan with the island? That's not Montauk. It's I always call it Montauk.
Not familiar with Michigan on that level.
Yeah, it's a big tourist area. They don't have bicycles there. It's not Montauk. Whoever's listening to me will probably immediately say what it is. It sounds like that.
One of the 20 people listening.
Yes.
Yeah.
And at any rate,
perhaps two.
And every one of them will know what it is.
Right.
Doofus. But at any rate, so Mackinac Island. It's an island no cars. Well, they started to put bikes on the island, and people were going 30 miles an hour, 40 miles an hour. So they've outlawed and banned electric bicycles except for pedal assist.
Mm-hmm.
And the Bosch system has a motor that's connected to the pedals, and it won't work unless you're pedaling. So that's the type of bike we want to make. We don't want to get something that turns into an electric motorcycle.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
So my understanding is you've been working on this bike for quite a while, maybe 9-10 years or more. Is that true?
Yes, I had the concept maybe 14 years ago. When it turned into a bicycle concept 10 years ago.
Okay.
COVID and some deaths in the family have prevented me from going faster. Plus, it's extremely difficult to get funding.
Right.
I would say in this country, the biggest problem we have with manufacturing and small manufacturers is the inability to fund these projects. And that would bring me back to talking about how to make this bike, if you want to hear a little bit about that.
Certainly.
Because that's the unique thing about it. Yeah, we're vertically integrating. We're making most of the bicycle ourselves, and that hasn't been done in 85 years. But how do we do it? Well, if you're in a huge corporation like General Motors, you would make your parts on a screw machine. You might need, and that hasn't changed, that technique and hasn't changed for 100 years. And a screw machine has turrets, it's like a machine gun. And so the longest the operation is, if it's 3 seconds, you can turn out a part, no matter how long it takes to make it, in 3 seconds. And that's what they need when they're making millions and millions of parts. So at the bottom of that list of things to do would be like this hat, where you make everything one at a time. You make the brim, you make the top, you make the buttons, everything one at a time. But the next thing down from the screw machine manufacturing is to have a mill turn machine, which we have. And this allows you to do, it has 2 turrets and it has 2 spindles. So you're doing almost like 3 and 4 operations at one time. The speed is very close to that of a screw machine, but not quite. And investing in that type of machinery will allow you to do the medium type of manufacturing that would lead to 5, 10, 15, 20,000 bikes a year.
Yeah.
And if you need more bicycles, you buy another machine. The trouble is the machines cost more than a Lamborghini, so we don't have too many of them out there. But that's the answer to it. And
Okay.
and if you buy the machinery, it's labor intensive. It's money intensive. You have to make that investment. And that's why you don't see more of it, because 1, you can't get the money, and 2, it takes so much to get going. As you can see, I've been tied up for years and years and years.
Right.
So it's but once you get it, it's absolutely wonderful because the parts are repeatable. You can run 100 parts, run another 100 different parts, run another 100 parts. You can't do that with any other type of machine. So down from that would be something like an individual lathe, an individual milling machine, and you do that, and then down from that would be working as not numerical control, but one that's run by hands. That's how you used to do before. And then down from that is this would be 3D printing, because that takes a long time to make a lot of parts on 3D printing. Let's say you needed impellers for airplanes, and they need 100 a day. Well, you'd have to have, and they can only make one machine can make 1 impeller. So you have to have 100 machines.
Right.
And that's exactly what they did in World War II. While we needed thousands and thousands of parts, you'd have 1,000 machines with 1,000 people. Now with mill turn machine technology and CNC technology coming as far as it has, you need maybe 1 person can do the same job as 100 people, which is a good thing.
So is this bike in production at this point? I mean, I know this is the prototype, correct?
Yeah, I appreciate that. We'll be turning out our first run of bikes in October.
Wow.
We have all the parts now and everything we need, so they'll be available.
If somebody was interested in getting one of these, would they have to? How would they go about contacting you or purchasing it?
Thank you so much. We have a web page, EmoryBikes.com, EmoryBikes.com.
EmoryBikes.com.
That's what it is.
EmoryBikes.com. You got to have a jingle, man.
need a jingle.
You need a jingle.
We need
You
some-
need to
we
give
need
me
a
a call
musician.
for a reasonable
We need
price. I will hook you up.
Absolutely.
I did the jingle for our show, and it's great.
It is
Everybody
good.
loves it. All 27 of them.
I couldn't give you a bike, but maybe a wheel.
Well,
so just something.
I'll have my people call your people. We'll get the contract drawn up.
Absolutely.
Okay. I know a lawyer.
And who is our people that would want, again, want people that live on the coast, but anybody appreciates quality, who wants to give a gift that's the very best you can give, that wants to ride a bicycle that's comfortable and never have any problem with maintenance. You never have to replace our bearings. I wouldn't say never, but because it does have seals, maybe every 20 years or 5 years you'd have to replace the seals. But the tires might blow out. That's about it. So the bike is made to endure, and that's the whole idea about it. So anyone who appreciates quality, appreciates American-made, this is it. In fact, it's the only it that there is.
Right.
So it makes it totally unique. It's like Chanel No. 5. There's lots of perfume, but there's only one Chanel No. 5.
That's right.
Exactly.
So there's only one Emory.
So, you described all the difficulties in manufacturing this bike. 10 years, you said it took. You described some of the challenges with the specific parts, the lack of funding, all of that, right? So why do it, I guess, is the main thing. Is it important in your mind to have American manufacturing? And if so, especially given the difficulties associated with it, why?
Well, let's look at it from a big picture standpoint. The wealth in a country comes from manufacturing. Let's take China, for example. We had 2 wars with China, Vietnam and Korea, lost 100,000 troops. Richard Nixon said, we can't do this anymore. Let's make nice. It'll also keep the Russians at bay if we open the Chinese market. Plus, it's a huge market for us. Maybe we can go over there and sell the Chinese people some stuff. Culminating in the last 10 years in the amount of money that a family has in China going from $1,000 per family to $10,000 because of all the stuff that we buy from China. We have some political things here that I don't want to bring up political stuff, but one of our political candidates says we have to put tariffs on. Tariffs will do 2 things. They'll make stuff from overseas more expensive. But if you make a product in the United States that's more durable, has higher quality, and will last longer, then the manufacturing will come back to the United States. And if we don't do that, we will lose a certain, over the long term, our standard of living will go down. Because we're a sovereign wealth country, we can print money, but at some point in time, with 36 or 38 trillion dollars in debt, it will all come crashing down, and we have to think about how to get back to manufacturing, and I think I've found the answer.
Well, what do you say to those people that say that manufacturing has been leaving for a while and we've been doing fine? We're still the wealthiest nation in the world. Why even bother?
I talked to Jack Welch. I bought his book, and I went to Jack and asked him to sign it. And I said, well, I guess you'll be onshoring stuff from now on. He was the fellow that was running Westinghouse. And I said, you'll have to start onshoring again, I guess, Mr. Welsh. He said, it'll never happen again. And I said, it better. He ignored me and went back to signing books. Now, is Jack Welch right, or am I right? Is Jack Welch the guy that's going to run this country in the future? Or is manufacturing going to come back again? Now remember, we are manufacturing our own battleships. We don't have many battleships anymore, but our own aircraft carriers, airplanes, weaponry, and automobiles. Now, if we lose automobiles, which is
my understanding is we're losing automobiles.
Yes,
very rapidly.
If they go to Mexico, as the Chinese start sending electric cars to this country, we're doomed. As far as now, listen, there are all kinds of different ways to manufacture stuff. But if you're buying Q-tips from China, if you're buying Band-Aids from China, for just a few cents more, it can be made here. and you put a tariff on it, you'll encourage people to come back and make stuff in the United States, from Band-Aids to automobiles.
And what if you combine tariffs with access to energy, to the reserves that we have here, the resources we have here? What happens then?
Well, I don't know why you'd have to do that, because we have such an abundant supply of the raw material.
Well, that's what I mean. If you combine the tariffs with tapping into those reserves, would that, what effect would that have?
Where would you put the tariffs, on ourselves, or?
No. You would put the tariffs on China and foreign entities, and then you would tap the resources here.
Oh, well, in that regard, I don't think you'd have to do that, because we can make oil cheaper here than they can anywhere else in the world. We have a higher quality of oil, of raw material, and also all of the. Here's the problem: all the refineries. You need refineries to take care of that oil. If for example, demand goes up, you don't need more crude oil. We've got plenty of crude oil if you open up the pipes. What we don't have is refineries. Mm-hmm. And regulations have stopped new refineries in the United States. It's asinine. Mm-hmm. We tried to build an LGBTQ processing plant for to liquefy natural gas, mm-hmm. which Europe desperately needs.
I didn't realize the LGBT community was into natural gas.
I had no idea either, but I guess
very interesting.
They're very into
learning something new every day.
Liquefied natural gas.
Why does that sound so dirty?
LNG. Okay. But yeah, we should be thinking about doing that type of thing.
Right.
And we are easily can become independent, but that's not the point. The energy side of it drives everything else. Now, the bicycle, being a totally green machine, could play into that. You can look at it that way if you wanted to. But manufacturing of anything that we do in the United States has such a tremendous benefit down the line. The guy that opens the sandwich shop, that sells the people that work in the factory, the guy that sells the paint, the fellow that sells the brick to the factory, all these things, not just the part that comes out of it. And we've closed one state in the United States closed 65,000 manufacturing factories. One state, I think it was Ohio. It's unbelievable. Where everyone else in the world is clamoring to make stuff. And as I mentioned before, look what it did to the standard of living in China. And who is their first customer? Who's the 7th largest trading partner of the United States? Walmart. Mm. So if you want to pay for cheap stuff, then say goodbye to your job, because you won't be able to work there anymore.
It's interesting because at one point Walmart was one of the biggest banner wavers for the Made in the USA movement back when I was a kid in the 80s. They were all about their commercials were all about it anyway. They don't have anything to say about it in the last 20 years.
For example, let's just say that they mm-hmm. have destroyed the bicycle industry. Mm-hmm. Guess what? They've just put $1 billion or so into bringing manufacturing back to the United States, and they have a company called Kent. It's in, I think, South Carolina, who's bringing. I think they want to make their own frames, but now they're bringing everything over from China and assembling it here. Mm-hmm. So don't be taken by that mm-hmm. Made in America label. Mm-hmm.
Assembled in
America is not the same thing. This bicycle we make was designed in Jacksonville, Florida, which I think is in America. This bicycle was made in Jacksonville, Florida. All the parts were made here in the United States. So that's what we're looking for, not assembled, not designed, And that's another thing, learning how to design this bicycle, all the engineering that went into this. It looks like, again, just a bicycle, but there's a lot of engineering. Yeah. Anybody could that's in that type of field could look at that and say, wow, that's pretty good.
So you had said earlier that your father, I guess, was a representative or an agent of the Schwinn Company. Is that how you got into bicycles? I mean, are you into bicycles recreationally or just as an engineering concept?
I appreciate that. I look at myself in my advanced age now, a bit more like Enzo Ferrari. Mm-hmm. He made the cars. He didn't race the cars.
Right.
Now, naturally, I'd love to ride around on a bike like anybody else, but I don't want to be, bent over like a pretzel.
Right.
Taking nothing away from 10-speed bikes, road bikes as it were, racing bikes, mountain bikes. If you live in Colorado, don't buy this bike. Right. This is not made for Colorado. On the other hand, if you take that bike, road bike, and take it to the beach, you're going to sink in the sand. This is made to ride on the sand. I noticed a lot of these bikes that are electrified, their tires were getting bigger than the tire on a motorcycle.
Yeah.
And if you plan to go to the beach, you must then ride only in the softest sand at 1 mile an hour. I mean, these bikes were made to go through snow. These tires, so these fads have to be. You have to look side of these fads. A lot of the cruiser bikes that are out there have the wheels. I mean, the pedals out an extra foot. So they call that a comfort bike. So you can sit on the seat and talk to your neighbors.
Yeah.
But at the same time, you're not efficient because you're not using gravity. So we don't do that. This is one thing we will never change on the bike. I don't care if you want to talk to your neighbor, then stand up on the bar. That's all there is to it. We're not going to change it. So this is one of the complications that we have in our bicycle that make it desirable. You know, despite all the other parts that we have. So that's the bringing things back to the correct way it should have been done, that we've done for so many years with racing bikes and every other bikes, not falling into the fad mentality of huge tires, pedals out where you wear yourself out trying to ride the bike.
What about the ape hangers? You know, the handlebar that's uphill?
They're all right. They're cruiser, man.
You can get that as an option.
Oh yes,
right?
any type of handlebar you want.
Yeah,
really. Yeah.
I always thought they looked pretty cool.
They do.
So what do you think of your fellow American engineer / manufacturer Elon Musk?
He's a genius. The guy's a genius.
Do you think he's worth a damn?
As an individual?
Yeah.
As a person? I never met the man, but he has created many jobs, and those jobs have given people that work there the opportunity to do any damn thing they want. So in that regard, I think he's done more to help the country than somebody who is just maybe a politician, somebody that lives off the dole, somebody that gets paid from the government, teat, and that would include teachers and soldiers who would buy my bicycle, so forget I said that.
Well,
present company excluded.
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, teachers, soldiers are not bureaucrats. You know,
but they create they create no wealth. I told a teacher that one time.
Neither do lawyers.
Yeah, yeah. But I was taught to a teacher that one time.
We will very quickly take your wealth.
I thought she was going to get in a fist fight with me. She, whoa, you know. But really, they create no wealth, but they do create value. They're very important to the whole system, but they create no wealth because they're paid with tax dollars. So you want to increase the tax base, you have to bring back manufacturing.
All right. So, Mr. And your official title is Big Wheel? Is that correct?
That's what they call me.
The Big Wheel at Emory Bikes.
Yes.
So I
lost some weight now, so I'm sort of like the little wheel. But.
Okay. All right.
The skinny wheel.
For you.
Skinny wheel, yeah.
Well, what's your advice, Big Wheel, to anyone who might want to bring manufacturing back to the US of A?
Don't do it.
All right. I did not expect that answer. I'll be honest with you.
Really, it'll make you into a super patriot, and it won't be easy. So you have to be prepared to take the slings and arrows of outrageous crap from the government to people that are telling you it's better to buy cheap than to buy quality. And that's all it is, really. You can either buy inexpensive, cheap stuff, or you can buy quality stuff. It's either cheap or it's quality. I can't lower the price on our bikes, which is, by the way, you want to know the price of it. A lot of people do. Approximately $2,200 for a single-speed bike. Okay. And you have to understand, it costs us well over $1,000 to make the bike.
Sure.
So I didn't cut any corners.
How does that compare to like a premium bicycle that is not this bike?
The ones from overseas that are cruiser bikes, I don't consider them premium, but they go for around as much as maybe $900, close to $1,000. Mm-hmm. So we're about twice as expensive, but about the same price as a Swim would have cost if you could take 1950 prices and bring them forward today.
Oh.
So relatively speaking, it's no more than a Swim would have been.
Nice. All right. So, Adam, any additional questions for Mr. Smith here?
Well, I was just wondering, what was the second best bicycle? Because obviously this is the best
Swin.
bicycle in the world.
Swin.
And why do you say that?
Well, their method of manufacturing was unbelievable. They had a butt-welded frame. No one else had that. Well, that's not true either. They actually licensed that technology to Jonas P. Øgland in Norway. And they are the only other ones that had butt-welded frames in the world.
What does butt-welded mean?
They take the tubing on the bike is pressed against the other tubing, causing a big flash. It's also called flash butt welding. And then Swin would go back. Now, the downside is they had to use 15-gauge steel. You see, so most bikes that were made in the United States at that time used 18-gauge steel. There's a big difference. So Swins were heavy, but they were durable, enormously durable. We get the same type of durability with lower weight because of what we're using, which is, as I mentioned, the stainless steel has 150,000 pounds of tensile strength. So, but at any rate, also the joints of the Swin bike, it was very smooth because they made the front part in two pieces and welded it together and machined it and ground it down. A lot of hand labor went into the Swin bike. So they really made an outstanding frame, but it still would only last 50 years because eventually a steel frame will rust through. This won't rust through.
They used to also have their own total distribution. I remember there used to be a Schwinn shop in Palaco where I grew up that only sold Schwinn stuff. That was it.
They had, and they're not the first ones.
We had one on the west side too.
Yeah, but they actually adopted the Total Concept store. And here in Jacksonville, I know for a fact that they approached some of the dealers that were Swin dealers that were also selling lawnmowers and other things, and those people didn't want to become a Total Concept store, so they didn't opt in. The problem that Swin had, the biggest problem, is that unlike McDonald's, Swin didn't own the real estate. McDonald's is not in the hamburger business. McDonald's is in the real estate business. They own the real estate and they have franchisees and they lease it out. Swin could have done the same thing. They had 1,000 dealers, and if they ran into any problems, which they did, and I could elucidate on that for an hour, they'd made some stupid mistakes. But they could have actually been. They could still have been in the bicycle business today. But it just overcame them. They couldn't.
So what has been the fate of Schwinn? Has it become just a foreign manufactured cheap product now, or what?
Well, a lot of people think Swin is an American-made bike, even today.
Well, that is the name.
Yeah, of course. Swin, Raleigh, Ross, Earth Cruiser, well, not Earth Cruiser, but Huffy, Murray, Ohio, Ross. All these bicycles that were made in the United States in 2000 because of the laws the United States government made possible. And it wasn't just the bicycle industry, shoe industry, textile industry, toy industry, bicycle industry. They all went to China. Not the car industry, of course, because that was protected. Right. But the bicycle, all these other industries were gone like almost overnight, around 2000. So the names still persist. They're still out there. But and especially in motocross bikes, there's still the big names that are out there, like I don't want to mention the names particularly, but a lot of these names that were out there are still there, but they're all made in China.
Yeah.
And so people go to the store, they think they're looking for quality. People are looking for quality all the time. People love quality. I've got an American shirt on, American pants, American shoes. You kind of have to put your money where your mouth is if you're going to sell an American product, in my opinion. And it's just me.
So I don't want to ask you about other manufacturers of beach cruisers, but are there any bicycle manufacturers that you would still consider American that are still operating here in the country as we speak without giving a plug to your competition?
Well, actually, there are thousands.
Yeah.
Thousands. And like the hat here, they're handmade bicycle people.
Right.
They will buy tubing from Ishiwata or Reynolds or even True Temper, which is made in the United States, and they will make a frame. And these frames, I've been to some of these conventions just for handmade bicycles, and they're works of art. I mean, they will take. Usually, they have lugs and stuff, and they'll make them totally unique, and the way that they paint the frames and the way they build the frames are just beautiful. I mean, you could put it on the wall, and then they go and have to have all the moving parts, which they don't make. Hardly anybody makes all the moving parts. A few people will make 1 or 2 bikes a year where they actually make their own sprockets and everything by hand. Right. But for the most part, they then take parts from Japan, like Shimano, parts from other places to put on their bicycles. And hopefully those same people will buy some of my parts down the road too.
Exactly. Diversify.
Yeah, so if they want to make a bike just like mine, then eventually there would be people making bikes that are for the second best bike. But really, so there is a big, really it's quite a large group of people that make the bikes by hand in their garage, or maybe some people have workshops and they might make as many as 100 bikes a year. Right. But it's not true production as such. There are people that make parts, like I'm buying these rims. So the guy makes rims here in the United States. That's an interesting story. His name is Mr. Black. He was in Australia and sent the rims to his brother in Michigan. Then he moved his factory to Jacksonville, started an anodizing line right here in Jacksonville. It's been so easy for me to do business with Mr. Black. What a wonderful guy. Then his brother died in Michigan. He moved everything to Michigan.
Oh man!
But I still do business with him, so I'm still using his products, but more expensive.
All right. Well, Mr. Big Wheel / suspected CIA operative,
international man of mystery.
Rolling along.
One of the candidates for president is talking about cutting regulations. The other, not so much. The one that's talking about cutting regulations, is he in the right?
Yes. It's not just there. You see where the people in your profession, the number of laws made every year. I mean, it's like 30,000 new laws, I don't know, a year, or 30,000 since 1950 or whatever it was. There used to be like 100 new laws on the books. I mean, it's proliferated because people can get a job making laws. People can get a job making...
What are those people called?
Bureaucrats. And attorneys.
Lawyers.
So, but I mean...
Lawyers.
It's very hard. It's very hard when there's so much money. See, that's another thing. The money's being diverted from manufacturing to Wall Street. Boy, I can go out and borrow money so cheap, and I can put it into the marketplace and make money by just sitting on my butt doing nothing. This is great.
Until it's not.
Eventually it falls over on itself. It's like when people first started in the...
you come up snake eyes and all of a sudden your money's gone.
Let me tell you, like for example, you want to see a system that's failing. When Social Security first came out, 30 people supported a Social Security person. Now it's 1-to-1. You are supporting me. Thank you.
Indeed.
But I'm a veteran, so the VA is there for me. So.
Yeah, right.
You don't have to bury me.
The VA reliably has your back.
I got a letter from Social Security a few years ago that said they had something like $130 trillion to pay out before my money came.
Wow.
I think, and I might be over. It might have been like 60 trillion. But it was a number that was so high I had to look at it several times. Are they really like? First of all, if that's true, why are you telling me this? Like,
why are you telling me now? Can you maybe give it until you spend down?
Whose idea in the government was, let's tell everybody how much money we got to spend before they get their Social Security, and send them a letter just to tell them.
Yeah, so it costs a lot of money.
Spend a couple million sending those letters because
people who manufacture envelopes in China.
How much did the government spend sending everybody this letter telling them how much money they're probably not going to be getting?
Yeah, it's funny how environmental policy doesn't matter when the government needs to kill a few trees to...
You're answering your own question. If the more regulations you have, now, which we need regulations. We need regulations. Years ago, this bike doesn't show a chain guard, but we will have a chain guard on our cruiser bicycles. But the chain guard was about 3 or 4 inches from the sprocket. A guy came in, the CPSC under Carter came in and said, "That's too dangerous." Wait a minute, you mean the chain guard is way back here in the back of the bike, It's not where the sprocket is in the front, and it's 3 or 4 inches from the rear sprocket, and it's not long enough. No, we must have it longer. So I complied with their edict and made our chain guard 2 inches longer, and then we started making our own chain guard, and I didn't have to buy it from the guy I was buying chain guards from. It cost me $15,000 back then to make the die. Mm-hmm. Why? It was absolutely, totally unnecessary. Right. Absolutely unnecessary. So I had a guy from the government come in at that time, and we had a loft inside our building. He said, a guy with just back in the Carter era, and he had a clipboard, and they had hired him to go around to businesses like mine. And he came inside and says, "You don't have the bearing weight on that loft, on that second loft you have up there." So he marked it down. He said, "I'll be back in a month," along with some other things, which I then complied with by crawling up on a ladder and putting 350,000 pounds per square inch. He came back in with his clipboard a month later, looked up, and he saw it written on there, marked it off, and I complied by having it marked on the thing. I mean, it would take 15 elephants to go through there. So that's the type of, if you ask about regulations, if they're good regulations for air and water, clean air and water, to protect, as Nancy Pelosi would say, the children, then that's okay. But otherwise, it's not okay. It stifles business. When you make everything, the EPA came in, not EPA, but the water management people came in to the United States. People would have like a puddle on their land. And say, "Oh, well, it's a watershed. You can't build anything there." So that just takes the value of that land away. So then that guy that was going to put up a building that might have helped people, Yeah. So I don't like regulations unless they're good regulations. I think the former president that was in there, who said, yes, you can have all the great regulations you want. However, you have to take away 10 or 15 or whatever it was every time you make a regulation. That makes very good sense to me. Same thing with the law. There's a lot of laws that you go by. They say you could just about put anybody in jail with all the laws that are on the books. Nobody can move around and not break a law.
That's an interesting concept. The you can make a new regulation, but you have to repeal 15. That's very similar to the wetland law in Florida, right? You can develop an acre of wetland as long as you protect 2 acres.
Yeah, you could do that.
Yeah,
it's like in Florida, in the South, is the most devastation of trees in the world. It's also, so if you looked at just that, you'd say, "Well, this is awful. What are we going to do? Slash pines,
Right.
So, but it's also, they reforest everything. So it depends on how you look at it, really.
Okay. All right. Well, if you have no further questions, Clayton, any last words? Anything you want to?
Any last thoughts
before we?
What do you want written on your tombstone?
Sacrifice to the bike gods.
I want to thank you, gentlemen. Anybody needs any legal work, of course. I don't know if I want to mention your names.
They know our names.
They do indeed.
Names, but
yes.
The rest of the world doesn't, so I won't mention Galistov and
Rowie.
Grochek. Anyway,
I am not a Russian.
But really, I appreciate you giving me the time, setting this all up for us, and I hope it will help to foster manufacturing in the United States and sell some bikes for me and my family. And where's your order?
My what now?
The order for the bike that you promised?
Oh, it's coming.
Okay.
It's coming. I told you I'll have my people call you. It'll be part of our deal with the contract.
Yeah, he'll write you a jingle.
Right, that's what it'll be. I'll get a bike and I'll give you a jingle.
It's in the mail.
I'm telling you, I'm good with the jingles. Just ask him. How long did it take me to write our theme song?
It was like 2 minutes.
Yeah, there you go.
I'm up, man. We need jingle.
That's why I'm the Cypher Divine.
That's
it
right.
just comes right to me.
But thanks again. Thanks for everybody that looked. And
thanks for coming. It was
Absolutely.
a lot of fun.
Thanks for being here. We had a good time.
All right. So what's coming?
Is this prophecy time?
It is. It is indeed.
So I've been thinking about this all through the show, and it has arrived, and it's dedicated to Clayton. In a race, a bicycle race between Pee Wee Herman and the Wicked Witch of the West, the tornado would win.
Damn. To be continued.
To be continued. I'm the Cyber Divine.